And welcome back now. Precarious Power, Compliance and Discontent under Ramaphosa's ANC is the latest book by political analyst Professor Susan Booysen, and the author chose 4 focal areas in her analysis. And Professor Booysen explores how the ANC deals with itself as an organization, and she also looks into the ANC in relation to elections and its dominance over the opposition. The third focus is the organization in relation to the people, and lastly, it brings under scrutiny the ANC's relationship with the state and its dealings with governance. Author of several books about the ANC at this point, Professor Susan Booysen is also emeritus professor at Wits University and joins us now. Prof, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Sakina.
Maybe, worth reflecting on at the onset is the style in which this latest offering is actually written. It's just been published, it's a few weeks ago, but it is written in the past tense, and we were just talking off air about the ongoing developments. But just give us a sense as to why and how this is going to develop further.
Yes, thank you, Sakina. The book is almost, it takes a bird's eye view of the very recent past and then continuously unfolding past, coming into the present, as to what is happening to this African National Congress of South Africa at this time under Ramaphosa, his role in his ANC. What is happening? How is it being manifested? How can we understand why a party that can often be so embarrassing to itself, so discredited in many ways, yet it redeem itself time and time again and remain dominant, remain so much stronger than other political parties? And it is with this mission in mind, this question, that I set out to research and then to analyze and write this book. And for me, what was so imminent in this was the fact that there are so many different layers to understanding this. There were supplementary and parallel dimensions of political power where the ANC relates to the people directly rather than through the formal institutionalized processes. And we can take that trend, this type of parallelism, throughout this, how it operates the state, how it performs in elections and organizationally.
And to that point, you actually do explore, Professor Booysen, in the book exactly that, because even at a time when detractors of the ruling ANC would say the country has been run down, we're dealing with rampant corruption, systemic even, then we are dealing with, at the coalface, service delivery problems that just seems to be exacerbated as time goes on. But even then, the ANC is still a dominant political force, and they are holding on to power. And you do explore how that actually comes to be. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yes, indeed. The ANC, we've seen it in going through elections, at one point going precariously close to 50% nationally projected results, and then in 2019 resuscitated, redeemed itself again, and that won a mandate largely on the belief that Cyril Ramaphosa and his Ramaphoria was bringing in a quote-unquote new dawn ANC, all that narrative of the time. But that soon dissipated, and we see now how the phenomenon of many different ANCs still manifesting itself, how people are still wondering which ANC are they actually voting for. And this perhaps has pertinence at this weekend's African National Congress's NEC meeting. So the ANC projects that there's always a different ANC. There's always the heroic, laudable ANC with the ideals of the liberation movement going strong. But then there are the other ANCs, and which one, at this moment, there is a struggle for which one actually has the upper hand. And then the ANC is dominance. Of course, it relates to its fusion with state power, how it uses that state power to remain close to its own electorate, to its core constituency. Very important in that. And through it all, opposition parties are kept, quote unquote, in place. They are just not given the space to rise higher up and really challenge the ANC. Even if they grow, they're nowhere near the dominant position that the ANC have. And of course, these are snapshots. This is an analysis of the ANC at this time. It helps us understand what is happening now. It's never stagnant, and it could change in future.
And even though you say it will change, even how the changes have occurred over time still seem relevant, even going back to previous books in some of the main themes that you explore as well, Professor Booysen. Talking about the Nasrec conference and the ANC emerging as a united front, that unity ticket, the songs we heard about unity and bringing the organization together. And I couldn't help but think this morning at looking at some of the newspaper headlines about one of the chapters in your book that speaks about anti-Ramaphosa revolt by stealth at Luthuli House, and exactly how things are unfolding at the moment, given that the reports this morning are suggesting that there may be a bid to oust the Secretary General Ace Magashule.
Yes, that we really have seen the building blocks staggering up in the last week, and because that challenge has become unbearable to much of the ANC, because it's a direct challenge by a person who is probably, by all charges to this point, discredited and a disgrace to the organization, and which challenges directly what Cyril Ramaphosa had made the electorate believe in, that there is a new ANC, that is an ANC that can move beyond corruption and state capture, even if the COVID-19 period has brought serious evidence that there is just no clean faction in the ANC, but the balance of evidence still goes against the Ace Magashules and that revolt inside the ANC. It is, we see the threats also building up around Jacob Zuma, former President Zuma, and how these points of energies and mobilization are converging. And their biggest threat to the stage is that they could bring a bigger revolt. But yet it is for the ANC main structures to call this a halt to this process. And unless they do that, there can be damages suffered. And Cyril Ramaphosa, I write in the book about almost a curse of the Unity Accord that he struck at Nasrec in 2017, promising to build the ANC, to hold it together. But this may be a point for serious choice for Cyril Ramaphosa and his followers in the ANC to say that Ace Magashule is acting against what that mandate was about.
Professor Booysen, and I'm listening to you characterize the ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule in very negative terms. And this is a criticism that comes from those who support the Secretary General, the RET forces, as they are called within the African National Congress, supporters of former President Jacob Zuma. You do say that both factions, that there's no one who's clean in all of this. To borrow from one of your colleagues, analyst Koko Obri Machikri, who talks about devils with halos and angels with horns, because it doesn't seem that anybody is clean in all of this. Is that not perhaps the main reason why the ANC is struggling, as it were, to find the space where they can actually deal with corruption in this country? Because nobody can point a finger at anyone else in any definitive way.
Yes, Sakina, indeed. And I'd also write about that, about the fact that Ramaphosa himself, even if he is challenging it legally, he is trying to get out of the accusations that he had misled Parliament, and that could be a very serious one. And they're always held back. There have been many threats and many scares in the past that should Jacob Zuma actually be charged, be in the position where he is at the moment, it could spill much more than what we know, what is in the public domain already. So, and that is one of the biggest drawbacks indeed of the ANC, that there isn't a clear-cut way, that there always fears that some of the skeletons of the past will come rattling out of that cupboard. And that is the balance of bets that any ANC leader has to take. At what point can they move forward credibly? And it is such a difficult decision, one that I address across, especially the idea of the ANC organizationally being many different ANCs, and there is indeed not a clean one in sight.
And so many touch points in your book that are absolutely relevant at the moment. Looking at what you say about the dominance and the weakness in the opposition political parties, you also talk about the alliance partners of the African National Congress, and as I say, many other touch points, and some of them very interesting to juxtapose to your analysis in the book and what is currently unfolding. But just looking forward, because we are out of time, Professor Booysen, what do you make of what is playing out right now in the State Capture Commission as it pertains to the African National Congress? Because many senior ANC leaders have been called before this commission to actually come and give evidence for some irregularities that have taken place with regard to alleged state capture.
Indeed, it's going to be so pivotal what that commission eventually arrives at. And it is pivotal that it actually survives this assault currently on its own reputation. And that is part of the constitutional pillars of the South African system. And the attacks of many forces in the ANC and beyond on those, because it is the point of no return here, where final accountability is being demanded, and whether it will be forthcoming from the Zuma side, that is unlikely, and we see martyrdom being created there around Zuma and questioning the credentials of the constitutional order. On the other hand, we really know it is going to be great sparks flying when Cyril Ramaphosa next month actually appears in front of that commission, where he will be talking on both sides of the ANC and being in government and deputy president. There are so many questions of complicity, of accountability, of sudden development, of political consciousness and political consciousness of the leaders, and to what extent Ramaphosa and his people should have known better, should have spoken out earlier, and which ANC actually remains standing after that evidence. That will be pivotal.
Professor Booysen, thanks so much for your time this morning. Professor Susan Booysen discussing her latest book with us on the African National Congress. It's called Precarious Power, Compliance and Discontent under Ramaphosa's ANC. And so many lovely touch points in the book, talking about things like the urban land question, Afrophobia, anything you can think of that the ANC is grappling with at the moment, some of the policy decisions around the economy. It's all in the book. So if this is something that floats your boat, you certainly want to lay your hands on it. Precarious Power by Professor Susan Booysen. That's where we have to leave it with our SABC 2 viewers this morning.